We are in the book of Song of Songs, chapter 5, or Song of Solomon, whichever yours has. Both are correct. It's just a matter of whoever put that particular version of the Bible together, what they named it. And it is a song about marriage. Has a lot of interesting things in there. Or as we learned last week, listening to Clive and Ian, mushy love songs and stuff like that. If you missed it, you can go back and watch. No, I guess you can't watch it last week because we didn't record that part for copyright reasons. So we're going to be in this chapter, chapter 5. And I want to start off by asking you investments. What are some common investments that we make in life? All right, name a few.
Well, our children, for one.
All right, Jeanette, you're muted. So we got.
Can you hear me now?
We can. So what is, besides children?
Education.
Education, absolutely.
Buying a house.
Okay, a home, a house. A home is different from a house, but a house is the accurate way of saying it. Anybody else?
Retirement.
Retirement's huge, yeah.
Investment.
Career investments.
Healthcare.
Healthcare. Ernie and Sarah Jane invested in their health this morning. They walked 2 miles. 6 if you count each other and the dog. 6 total. And you know, that's what we do. I mean, if you want health, you have to invest in it. If you want a retirement, you got to invest in it. If you want your kids educated, you gotta invest in it. One of the best investments we will ever make is the investment in marriage. And that is a big, 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 huge investment. And it's one of the most worthy ones because marriage is the second greatest decision we ever make. People think, wow, how really? Yeah, it is. Because the first greatest decision we ever make is heaven and hell, Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior. Am I going to give my life to Christ or not? That affects all eternity. But the investment of marriage is till death do us part. So that's a huge investment. It has all kinds of implications when it comes to family. So really the bottom line is whatever matters most to you at any one time is what you will invest in. Do people invest in stupidity?
Yes.
Yeah, turn on the news. But there are people that are saying, hey, we want this to be a communist or leftist or socialist type of country, and they are investing time and energy, everything possible to make that happen.
Money.
And it's forcing people to say, what do I want to invest in? What kind of country do I want? So it's pushing people to the max. Now, married folk, most of us in here are married folk or have been married. One of the greatest investments you will make is investing in your what?
Marriage.
Investing in your marriage. I still remember the pre-marriage counseling that Angela and I took from the pastor's wife. She had some very practical things. And I don't know if she actually used this term. Angela, you can tell me if she did or not, but she basically said, date your mate. And she said, whatever you're doing before you got married, do while you're married so that you will enjoy it after marriage. In other words, you still invest in the relationship. It takes time and it takes energy. And even more important than investing in your marriage is your investment in God. How many are investing time in your relationship with God? Yeah. And we do that on his terms. And he tells us what we need to do. The reading of the scriptures, the sharing of our faith, the using of our gifts, the growing in grace through character. There's all kinds of ways that we invest in God. Now, hold on, let's see. I think I got 2 different files up. All right, let me bring this up. A simple outline. I found a simple outline that I found for this particular book is really based on, and this whole book, you could take it back Genesis 2:24, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they will become one flesh. And one person that I was reading, he suggested that the simple formula or the simple outline for the Song of Songs is leaving, chapter 1:1, verses 3 through 5, then cleaving, chapter 3 through the first verse of chapter 5, and then weaving. What do you think he meant by weaving? Did y'all see that, or did I get the wrong thing up?
We did not see it.
You did not see it. All right, let me try this again. And uh-oh, you know what I did? I closed it accidentally. That wasn't too smart of me, was it? All right, let me try this again. And I will bring it back up again, if I can get to it. And, well, it's not showing. Hold on. There's Janet. How are you doing, Miss Janet? Well, I can't seem to get it up. Will y'all excuse me for not being organized?
Sure.
Let me try it one more time.
Janet, you're muted. He's trying to open a file.
Yeah, trying is the operative word.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you.
Ah, there it is.
Good.
All right. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
See,
On the bottom right is what I was telling you about. The suggested file or suggested outline is leave, cleave, and weave. Now, what do you think weave means?
Coming one.
Pastor Jimmy,
Yes.
when my son first got married, he called me quite a bit. He called me to tell me how everything was going. And then next week he called me to tell me how everything was going. And I said, Derek, you can't cleave to your wife talking to your mama. So you have to make sure you spend that time with me. You've left us and we're here to help. But I don't want her to be offended that's got to talk and things by mama all of the time. So to me, that weaving, that back and forth, and he finally got the idea and did start to cleave.
Yeah. Basically, leaving was the engagement period, okay, in the part of the book. Cleaving was the marriage itself, and then weaving is exactly what you described. Meaning, you know, in the marriage act, we commit. This is what we commit to. We commit to one flesh. But the weaving is actually doing it, okay? And you were telling the son, hey, you know, you can't just keep running to mama. You got to weave. You got to become what you've committed to. And so I think that's a nice way of looking at the book. Now, we're going to go ahead and begin or continue on by looking at the first point, chapter 5, verses 6 through 8. And here's what it says, and it's titled, The Cry for Companionship, where the song depicts the new life as needing emotional support from her husband. She called out to others for help, but she was met with abuse. Let's see what that looks like. I opened to my beloved, but my beloved had turned away and had gone. Now, read the verses before that, and you'll see that he had come knocking to the door. It's not uncommon for a king not necessarily be sleeping in the same bed as his wife all the time. And the suggestion is that they had some kind of spat, but he came to her door and she hesitated. But then she realized, I gotta go answer him, but he had already gone. So the last part of verse 6, my heart went out to him as he spoke. I searched for him, but I did not find him. I called him, but he did not answer me. Verse 7, the watchmen who made the rounds in the city found me. They struck me and wounded me. The guardsmen of the walls took away my shawl from me. Verse 8, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, if you find my beloved, as to what you will tell me, or as to what you will tell him, for I am lovesick. Now, last week when we looked at this searching, we were pretty convinced that this was a dream. Now, this may also, there's a good chance that she is also dreaming again, but now she's dreaming as a married woman, and there's a spat going on between them. And so she's having somewhat of a nightmare. If that's the case, one of the reasons why I think that is because of what happens to her. Basically, she's saying that the same little foxes that tried to prevent them from getting married in the first place, or setting the stage for them having a worse marriage than they should, that the little foxes have found their way into their home. Does that ever happen in a marriage? Little foxes get in?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they do. So she said, I opened up, and now again, scholars are debating whether this is a dream or literal. I kind of lean toward the dream. They also, here's the other thing, they also debate whether he was physically gone or just emotionally distant. Either way, it's not good, is it? So things are happening, whether it's a dream or not, or physically gone or not. But then here's what matters. It says, my heart went out to him. What do you have does anybody have something else in your version of the Bible? Does anybody have my heart sank?
What verse are you on?
I'm on, this is verse 6, the last part.
Oh,
The New American Standard says, my heart went out to him as he spoke. And I don't know if somebody else had something different.
my soul failed when he spake. My soul failed when he spake.
So fail. Okay, good. Anybody have something different?
My heart leaped.
Okay. Now, the word there kind of has the sense of it sank. And it kind of shows exactly where she was. Now, why? Remember, they are one flesh. They have committed to one another. They are no longer two. And I think that one thing she's saying is, had I opened the door sooner at his request, he would still be there. But in this dream, or whether it happened, actual happened, he's now gone. So my heart went out to him. I searched for him, but did not find him. A suggestion is that she actually left the premises and went out and searched for them. Now, do you remember the watchmen from last week?
Mhm.
Okay, here they are again. Verse 7, the watchmen who make the rounds in the city found me. They struck me and wounded me. Oh, wait a minute. This is different. So they're treating her badly. If it was a literal incident or something like that, in other words, it would mean that they did not recognize her for who she was. And they were punishing her in some way. So if this is the dream, then the guardsmen represent the punishers, okay, for the way that she acted. So they hinder her. The watchmen hinder her in her search for her beloved. So just like in last week, now in this week, you got the watchman, and now you've got the same as well in verse 8. It says, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem. So here again, she turns to whoever the daughters of Jerusalem are, which I believe happens to be those who she was closest to, people who she had worked with. And so her friends. So she turns to him, likely those who work with it, and she says, and I adjure you, meaning this, she is giving them a charge. In essence, I'm saying, I want you to take an oath. So this is a very serious thing, O daughters. If you find my beloved, as to what you will tell him, for I am lovesick. Now, so she is just, can you sense the panic in her?
Mhm.
Yep.
You feel that?
Of course.
Is it a panic based in reality and love, or do you think it's possibility that she's more given into her fears right now? What do you think? Do you ever get fearful?
Giving into her fears.
Careful.
Yeah, that's what I
I
think
think
too.
she's giving into her fears.
Okay, we all get fearful, and we all make decisions sometimes based on things. He says, I am lovesick. Now, in other words, I want you, daughters of Jerusalem, to assist me in my reconciliation to my husbands. In other words, I want you to communicate to him that the relationship that we have is more important than any hurt feelings I'm currently entertaining in my soul right now. That's what she's asking them to do. Okay. Now, here's the thing. In a marriage, circumstances may change, like spats and all that, but passion for one or commitment to one another never has to change. But when you have hurt feelings, sometimes you think the worst is going to happen and the marriage is over and this is going to happen and you entertain crazy stuff. Anybody ever do that? Do us pastors ever entertain that? The church is mad at me and it's all over and this, that, and the other. You don't think that ever happens, do you? Sure it does.
This poor lady, she's got all these other wives,
She's got these other what?
He's got all these other wives. Sure, she's upset.
Well, we don't know that yet, Sarah Jane.
Oh, but we do, but they don't. She can't help but be suspicious of no politics. What's going on?
Well, see, I'm taking the different path here. I think that the Shunammite is his first wife, and it's just the two of them. Okay. Now I could be wrong on that, so I'm not gonna bet my last Bible on that. But I think that this is his first wife, and they are passionate about one another, and there's only just the two of them, and that's why she's feeling that way. You could be right though, because Solomon ended up with 700 wives and 300 concubines. Had it been at that point, then yeah, she has good reason to feel a little bit insecure and all that. All right. So this is what the situation is. Anybody want to say, before we move to the next segment, anybody have anything they want to add? All right. So what do you do when you are lovesick and you're feeling the passion and all that kind of stuff and you're wondering if everything's going to be okay? Well, the call for remembering comes into play. So this is going to be a response from the young woman that challenged the bride to remember why she was attracted to her husband in the first place. So here they are, they're talking. Verse 9, what kind of beloved is your beloved, O most beautiful among women? What kind of beloved is your beloved? That thus you adjure us. So in the first, last week when we talked about this, they're just responsive. Are they as responsive this week as they were last week?
I feel that way.
They're what? See, they're not just jumping into it, are they? They don't immediately agree to her charge. So is this question that they are asking, do you think it may be because they're trying to bring her back to her senses? In other words, you're not thinking this thing through real carefully. In other words, we hear fear talking, not love talking. By the way, if you're counseling a friend, okay, and they start asking things of you based on their fears, it may be one of those, let's take a time out for a second. And let's revisit what you're actually saying and what you're asking me, because it seems to me that she's trying to draw them into her fears and to commit to her fears. And they're saying, not too sure about that. I don't think that's the way it needs to go.
It sounds to me like they're trying to calm her down and bring her back to the
reality.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And by the way, that's one of the things that you can do when God puts you in the position as a counselor. When you smell or hear fear or whatever, get them back on the basis of reality. And love is the greatest reality of all, because it's real, it's lasting, it's permanent, and it satisfies. Now, notice how they do that. How do they do that? They first call her, oh, most beautiful among women. See, this is a little added nuance that they use, maybe to help her see, look at what you've got. One of the reasons that you were chosen is because people, not just your husband, but we consider you the most beautiful of women. May refer to her her feelings, being about her physical beauty or her emotional beauty or whatever. So they're trying to get her out of her emotional bondage and trying to get her to see, you were chosen for a reason, oh, most beautiful of women. So they're really working on her, bringing her back to her senses. And so, go ahead. Go ahead, Angela.
Are you the most perfect one for him?
I like that. Yeah. So, ladies, do you ever feel inadequate?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Men, do we ever feel inadequate? Sure, we do. We may feel inadequate in our job, our marriage, or fathering, this, that, and the other. But when those fears arise, get back to reality. And that's what the friends are doing, trying to get her back to reality. So they ask her the question. Now, this is one of the techniques that they use, and it's a good technique for us. When fear comes in, truth sets you free from fear, does it not?
Yeah.
You shall know the truth, and the truth
Yes, it
shall
does.
set you free. She needs freedom from her feelings of
free.
inadequacy. Okay? So they ask the question, what kind of beloved is your beloved? And thus you adjure us. So this question is asking her, in essence, to basically take a balanced inventory of her situation. Yeah, there may be a spat going on, so take a balanced view of it. But don't get unbalanced in what you are looking at. The problem here is fear. And spiritual fear to me is just another way of saying the overt concern over personal loss. All right.
Mhm.
Have you ever had a panic buying or panic selling or panic this or panic that? That's what fear is all about. When it comes to faith, faith is the security that's based on God. Okay. So, in other words, one of the things that keeps us centered is this: marriage is, you always start with God. God is the basis for marriage. Okay. So when you look at your spouse, you look past your spouse and you see God. And when you look past your spouse and see God, or if you're single, you look past any potential person, and you first see God. When you see God, then you see marriage, and you see what marriage is all about, and then you start seeing the person. Okay. So, and that's where commitment comes in. Where do you get commitment to marriage? When does that start, actually? Does it start at the altar?
No.
Does it start in dating? No, it really doesn't, does it? You see, marriage commitment actually starts with young children, what they see in their families, what they are taught by their teachers and pastors. And I can still remember, I was smart enough as a kid to see where my parents were strong in marriage, where they were weak. And I had good enough ears to hear what my pastor was teaching on it and what other teachers and what other people lived. And you say, wait a minute, marriage is bigger than just any two people. And matter of fact, it goes all the way to God. And that's what makes marriage work. You look past people and you see God. When you see God, you see what he thinks of marriage. When you see what he thinks of marriage and its values, then you see the person or the potential person. And that's how it should work. So that, when I was young, I see the values, okay? And as I get older and all kinds of emotional things come into play, or false teachings that Hollywood comes out, you see all of these false things come up. You get the basis to sort through that. And then every once in a while, you just get carried away by one particular person when you're dating or whatever, and something has to bring you back to your senses. And then you say, okay, wait a minute, let me get back to where it needs to be. What is marriage all about? You see God, and then God shows you the type of person. And when that person is not all that you think that person needs to be, you still look to God, and you start to see that other person in God's eyes. Angela?
We were talking about that, a phrase, hold on, my battery's running low. Conviction sets the course for commitment, and not compromise.
Mhm.
Because you have to have those convictions before you really commit to someone. And if you don't base your commitment on your strong faith-based convictions, then you will be compromising, and that will be detrimental to both.
Yep. All right, good point. Anybody else? So she's asked, the young ladies have asked their question. All right, now we need to find out what it's going to be. Here's her answer. So Solomon told the bride, recounting the admirable characteristics of the husband. In so doing, the bride is seen as reaffirming her love for her husband. So let's see what she says. Verse 10, my beloved is dazzling and ruddy, outstanding among 10,000. His head is like gold, pure gold. His locks are like clusters of dates and black as a raven. His eyes are like doves beside streams of water, bathed in milk and reposed in their settings. His cheeks are like a bed of balsam, banks of sweet scented herbs. His lips are lilies dripping with liquid myrrh. His hands are rods of gold, set with beryl. His abdomen is carved ivory inlaid with sapphires. His legs are pillars of alabaster set on pedestals of pure gold. His appearance is like Lebanon, choice as the cedars. His mouth is full of sweetness, and he is wholly desirable. This is my beloved, and notice this next phrase, and this is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem. All right, who wants to tackle this? Somebody want to explain all that for me? Not an easy one. So let's just go through and then let's get the big picture at the end. He's dazzling and ruddy, outstanding among 10,000. In other words, to put it in Navy fighter pilot language, he's the top gun. Best of the best. He is Tom Cruise, the best one of all, using Top Gun. All right, maybe not the best illustration. Okay. But he's also fit and strong. Verse 11, his head is like gold, pure gold. Now, pure gold has to be what? You have raw gold and you have pure gold. So what's the difference between raw gold and pure gold?
The best.
Okay, you got the best, but how do you go from raw to pure?
Put it through the fire.
Put it through the fire.
Right. It's been refined.
Okay, it was mined, now it is refined.
Been refined.
Yeah. So she's saying that he is not just valuable, he has been refined. There's no flaws, no impurities, more valuable. This is one of the reasons why, Sarah Jane, I think that he's probably not been married yet. I mean, he's had wives 2 through 699. Because remember, when Solomon first got going, he was amazing. His relationship with God was amazing. And if you were with him, you'd say, that's the kind of guy I want to be like. And then it went downhill from there. So this is one of the reasons why I think that it's just the two of them. So his head is going, his locks are like clusters of dates and black as a raven. Basically, if it's black as raven, ravens have very shiny black feathers. Typically, a raven is used in a negative sense in the Bible, right? But when it comes to their feathers, man, they are shiny black, which means he's very young. And then when Solomon was young, he was a different man. So whatever it means, it communicates he stood out. There's no gray, and he's youth and vigor. Here's my favorite verse of all, verse 12. His eyes are like doves beside streams of water. Now, the analogy is not actually 100% certain here, but what I believe it has to do with, it has to do with the nature of the dove. Who knows anything about doves as far as male and female? What's specific about them, or what's famous about them? You know? I didn't before I read this. They mate for life. The male and the female stay together till death do you part. And I think that's basically what she's describing here. There's lifelong commitment to one mate. Here, another. This is the other reason why I think this is his first wife, and the best one he's ever had, obviously, because they were designed to be together, just like doves are. They are bathed in what? Let's see. Verse 12. I lost my place.
Milk. 12. Milk.
Bathed in milk. I have a typo here. Most likely, this is talking about the whites of his eyes. Bathed in milk, whites of the eyes. And the settings probably are pupils or like jewels, like valuable pieces of jewels in a necklace. So you see the picture there, the whites of his eye, pure white, and his pupils are like gems. Eyes don't just see here, they communicate to her. His cheeks are like a bed, banks of sweet smelling herbs. Now, she now shifts from visual to olfactory. Did I get that word right? The sense of smell, aromas, meaning this, she gets close enough to him to smell. Now, it could be referred to as pheromones, but I don't think that's what it's talking about, because it goes on to say sweet smelling herbs. So spices and perfumes, they were luxury items in Israel. You just didn't go to the grocery store. You didn't go to Walmart and say, let me get some spices or perfumes, or to any perfume shop. They're not common like they are to us. So it would be people who were of royalty or very rich. And it says a bed of mound, which would suggest royalty. So he always smelled delightful when she was close to him. His lilies dripping with liquid myrrh. Myrrh is an aromatic spice derived from the sap of certain trees, put on a water lily or a lotus flower. Verse 14, hands, rods of gold set with beryl. In this context, the hand represents the entire, not just hands, but the entire appendage, from shoulder down to the fingertips. Okay? And let's see. So, mentioning gold and jewelry has both figurative and literal meaning. Now, because Solomon was rich, he probably had great rings on and bracelets around his arm. So he was, again, he's royalty. So he would be wearing precious metals. And I'm guessing he might have had some guns too. And she admired those things, because Solomon came from good stock. David was a warrior. And so Solomon came from him. His abdomen is carved ivory inlaid with sapphires. So that you start putting that all together, it's great worth literally and figuratively. So such a description no doubt stirred up her deepest feelings toward her husband before and now. Verse 15, his legs are pillars of alabaster and set on pedestals of pure gold. So this is completing. I mean, she started with the head, now she's down to her toes. And description of Solomon, she talks about polished stones of milky color set on a base of pure gold. So in other words, he has a great foundation of worth and stability. So she's describing him all the way through. And again, when you get down to gold, precious gold or pure gold, that means he's been refined and he's valuable. And then the appearance like choice cedars. So Solomon overall is majestic. He's renowned worldwide. And the cedars were renowned worldwide. So he is renowned worldwide. These same cedars were imported in the building of the temple. And finally, verse 16, his mouth is full of sweetness. Now, this is likely a figure of speech talking about his tender expressions. When you read prior to this chapter, you will see a number of things that he said to her. And I think that's probably what is referred to. But the final statement is one I thought was the best. Beloved and friend. This is her one flesh mate. She doesn't have just an emotional attraction to him. She says, this is us. Okay? And that's the way marriage is supposed to be. The two shall become one flesh. Now, let's be real. How many of the patriarchs followed that? Not many. In fact, I can only think of Isaac as the only one who had one wife. So did
Well, I think
David follow that?
Joseph only had one wife, I think. But
Yeah, that's right. He did. And he would be considered a patriarch. Thanks for bringing that name up. And yet, what kind of woman did he marry?
an Egyptian.
An Egyptian woman, yeah. So there was even problems with that. So he probably had to work a lot harder, and missionary dating and missionary wedding and all.
Jimmy,
All right.
Jimmy, one of the things that I see maybe incorrectly here, I thought about a comment from the woman Mary Crowley, who you probably recognize her name.
Yes.
She wasn't always complimentary toward men, but this is one of her statements. She says, men are strange creatures. Said you have to prop them up on one side so you can lean on them on the other. And I think that this woman is propping Solomon up right now so she can lean on the other side.
Yeah. Well, put it this way. How many marriages are perfect?
None.
We have to prop each other up.
One.
Okay, which one is it? Did you say one, Jeanette, did you say there's one perfect marriage? Did I hear you correctly?
No, I said, no, the perfect one that God put together is Adam and Eve, and that one failed. So there you are.
Okay. They had a complete marriage starting off, but they didn't end up the perfect marriage. There is one perfect marriage. And what is that perfect marriage?
Jesus Christ and his church.
Jesus Christ and his
Jesus
church.
Christ and his church.
Yeah.
But they're only perfect because of his righteousness.
Because of him.
Right.
Right.
See,
Not
that
because of
is
us.
the one marriage where the guy can say, I'm perfect and you're not, but I'll make you perfect. And we are all collectively the bride
That's right.
of Christ.
But that's the attitude that a family and a marriage should have. You know,
Mhm.
I will make you look perfect. I will sacrifice for you. I will love you. I will do all the things that Christ did for us. That's the attitude that a marriage should have.
Right. You know, there are two drastic visions of our country right now, are there not? And we saw that. We've seen it. It's like America is the greatest country that's ever existed. And yet we know we got problems, don't we? And they're on the streets right now. There's all kinds of things. And yet both of those, you know, yes, we do have problems, but it's also the greatest country. Why? Because it goes beyond the behaviors of the people. It goes back to our roots. We are a constitutional republic that's it's not perfect, but it was built on the perfect foundation of the scriptures. Do we agree with that?
Yes.
The scriptures are perfect because God gave us. It's his word. Now, our Constitution is not perfect, but it's the best that this world has ever seen, right? Well, think about this.
Mhm.
Marriage, when you look at the big picture, is perfect because it's not rooted in the particular people. It's rooted in the God who wants to bring us to heaven as the bride of Christ. Is that a fair statement? So does that give marriage on earth with us imperfect people dignity and motivation to be all that we need to be? Yeah. And when I was single, this is how I felt. Now that I'm married, I still feel that way. Nothing's changed, whether you're single, whether you're married. You know, you say, I'm holding up marriage, not because of the particular people, because that particular people can fail, they're imperfect, some of them are great, some of them not so great. But marriage is so much bigger than just any two people. And that's why we don't throw it away. Now, this book, one of the things that I did when I was looking at this book, I was starting to be reminded of the big picture of marriage and why did God allow this book to be, since it's a bunch of mushy love songs, why did he put it in the scripture in the first place? And I'm going to postulate that one of the reasons is he was giving an Old Testament look to what New Testament reality is going to be. Revelation 19:7-8 says, "Let us rejoice and be glad and give him glory. For the wedding of the Lamb has come, and the bride has made herself ready. Fine linen, bright and clean, was given her to wear." Now, the picture on the left is what the picture of heaven is going to be. One day, Jesus is going to come back for us, and he's coming back for his bride. And we're not taking all of our junk with us, are we? We will leave behind our sin. We will leave behind our failures. We'll leave behind all of that. And whatever looks like Jesus in our life, we will be spotless and clean before him. That's the big picture of marriage. And that's what makes the Song of Songs so wonderful. But the picture on the right is a different picture. What is this picture? Anybody want to say?
Awaiting Christ's return.
Yeah. See, the picture on the right, she's not married yet. She is betrothed. And see, Christians on this earth, we are betrothed to Christ. The marriage has not taken place yet, but the commitment has been made. We are committed to one another, but the marriage has not taken place. So awaiting Christ's return means we are getting ourselves ready. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So how does this book, Song of Solomon or Song of Songs, remind you about your relationship with Christ? Okay, repeat after me. I am betrothed to Christ.
I am betrothed.
I am betrothed to Christ.
All right, let's do it again. Repeat after me. I am betrothed to Christ. Go ahead.
To Christ.
I am betrothed to Christ.
Okay. Now repeat after me. One day,
One day,
I will,
I will,
along with all other believers,
Along with all other
along with all
believers,
other believers,
be married to Christ.
Be married to Christ.
be married to Christ.
That is the big picture, and heaven's going to be your home. Is there going to be any flaws in heaven?
No
Hey, there may not
problem.
even be you may not even have to dust. Wouldn't that be nice? Who knows? All right, here's the next question. In summarizing this book, how does this make you see your own personal worth? How do you see yourself in your own personal worth after seeing this book? Okay, go through and see what Solomon said about the Shunammite, and then imagine what Jesus sees about you in you.
Mhm.
How much worth is that? It's amazing.
Your value.
Value. See, the Shunammite was probably a commoner, not one that you would have said, she's royalty. Well, we're commoners, and yet Christ chose us. We're common, but beloved. All right. So, does the book of Revelation make you recognize the emotional appreciation when you consider in heaven? We will recognize between the difference between our sinfulness and Christ's holiness. Do you think that's going to have an emotional impact on us?
Yes.
Yeah, it already has one now, but do you think it'll even be that much greater? Do you think that emotional impact will be of the same or even greater intensity than the comments that you read in the book of the Song of Songs as they talk to one another within this mushy love songs? Do you think it'll be even deeper than that?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. And so this is why whenever you read Song of Songs, think about, this is how Christ feels about me. This is what he sacrificed for me. This is why I am valuable. And therefore, I need to work on the relationship. All right? So, closing comments from anybody? You're just awestruck, aren't you?
Well, Pastor, when you think of the wedding ceremony itself, a lot of people in modern times have a problem with the word submit. But if we keep it on a spiritual level, it is our great joy and pleasure to submit to Christ Jesus. And if we keep that at our forefront, it would help us in the relationship of submitting to someone that God put over the woman, which is man as a protector. And so it's not like you're going to be something to be trampled on. That's not what I mean. But we submit under the righteous authority of Christ Jesus. And you submit as a wife under the righteous authority of a husband in the home.
Yeah. As the church is, as the wife is subject to her husband, the church is subject to Christ, because we want order. We want his order. And people think that, that sometimes that gives a man the upper hand. No, it puts more responsibility on him. He's got to stand tall. And ladies have to stand tall. And together you stand tall. All right. Anybody else? Closing comment. Now, have we all made mistakes in marriage? Yes or no? Except for Jessica.
Yes.
But she's learning from all of us, right? And I can remember being that age and thinking about it. And that's where marriage, first of all, became successful. Not when I stood at the altar, but long before that. So my prayer is, may our children and our grandchildren learn the best, from our best and from our worst, and keep their eyes on Jesus and learn marriage from him. Look past people, see him. Look to people for examples how to do it right, how to do it, and what not to do, but always keep their eyes on him. Is that a worthy prayer? All right. Well, Angela,